should we make a start then as people kind of join us? Welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us this evening or this morning, wherever you are. We have a few things that have changed since our last user group. The number one thing you've probably noticed is that we are now on Teams, and hoping that it will help our community get together a bit easier, chat during the events a bit easier, share questions, and just provide a bit of interactivity as we kind of come together every month. So hopefully no one had any issues with joining, but if you do have any feedback or issues, just let us know, drop us a little note, and we'll make sure to see what's happening in the background. So that is the first thing that has changed. The main kind of driver behind it was just to help us interact with our community a bit better. So hope that it's a welcome change for all. So my name is Sarah, which I should have said before I said all of this, and I'll be hosting the TUG today. Along with me, we have a wonderful team. Charlotte is here. Oh, my slides went to slide 10. That's weird. Charlotte is here, my co-host today, and Stephen and Rowan, who are not with us today, but are organizing things in the background. There are a few things we wanted to flag to you in terms of the user groups we think you'll enjoy. So if you're just getting started with Tableau, there's currently a series of Tableau newbies user groups happening online. In terms of UK specific user groups, there's the London user group, Nottingham, Scotland, Northeast, Northwest, and then Data Plus Women. There is also I think an event with the Data Plus Women user group coming together shortly, so make sure to check it out if it fits your schedule. There's some really, really great communities to get involved in, and a lot of transferable things and learnings to share. In terms of some of the virtual groups, there's quite a lot of talk around AI recently. So there is a Tableau AI user group, as well as the analytics, the newbies one that I've mentioned, and then the accessibility as well. If any of those are of interest, we would recommend them. Great communities to be a part of and to share some of the learnings. If you haven't already joined the Tableau community on Slack, this is where we all stay in touch and kind of share ideas, questions, asks for support, all of that. If you're interested in presenting or becoming a speaker, there's an opportunity to do that in the community as well. So there's a QR code on the screen, but if you just Google Tableau community on Slack, you'll be able to join it as well. A bit of a heads up for our next event. So next month in April, Matthew Miller will join us from Tableau. That is scheduled for 16th of April at 2 p.m. UK time. If you'd like to join us, the QR code on the screen will take you to a sign-up form. You will also get, as you're part of the community, you also get an email inviting you to register as well. So all very welcome. It'd be great to have you there as well. Yeah, as I say, invitation coming over to you shortly over email, but if you would like to register, the QR code is there. Thank you, Charlotte. And Charlotte just popped it in the chat, so it's easier if you don't have a phone nearby. I think that's all in terms of kind of notices and the things that you should expect from us in April. We can go back to today's event. So over the last couple of months, we've asked people what they would like to hear more from the community, where kind of the things that are people finding useful or things that people struggle with. And we have heard quite a lot around dashboard layouts and design. And if you were with us in September, Miriam was with us sharing some of her work, and quite a lot of comments that we received was, this looks really great. It's really clear, the work that she's done. How do I make my dashboards look that good? How do we get that clarity? How do I incorporate that in the design? So we've kind of took that on board and decided to take one of our tugs and dedicate it to dashboard design and layout. And I'm very, very pleased to introduce Ryan, who's joining us today to talk about exactly that. So welcome, Ryan. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your very busy schedule to join us and talk to us about this. We will, if you have any questions during the talk today, please pop them in the chat. We will kind of summarize them all and answer them at the end during our Q&A session. Equally so, if there's anything that you'd like to just kind of ask in person, now that we have that option at the end, please raise your hand once we reach the Q&A session, and we can do that as well. That is all from me. Welcome, Ryan. Thanks so much for being with us. I'll hand over to you.
Sarah, thank you very much for the warm introduction. I'm excited to be speaking to you today. And as Sarah mentioned, if you have any questions during the talk, you can just put them in chat. If it's relevant to what we're talking about at that moment, we can answer it then. Otherwise, we might save it to the end. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. Sarah, are you able to see that? It says dashboard design.
That works. Yes.
Awesome. So like I've said, my name is Ryan Gensel. I'm a former head of data visualization and business intelligence at Apple. I'm also co-inventor of a patent-pending business intelligence platform and previously consulted with organizations like Intel, American Express, and NASA. My work is published in 2 books now, the Big Book of Dashboards, and more recently, Dashboards That Deliver. Currently, I operate Thinking Interface Design, which focuses in 2 areas: analytic platform design and executive reporting within large organizations. Everything in this talk is my own opinion and doesn't represent the views of any past employer or client. If you have any questions during the talk, just type them in the chat and we'll answer them during Q&A. So today, I want to give you some very practical guidance. We're going to start out a little bit conceptual and move to more tactical design and layouts, but I wanted to get this out of the way first. Dashboards are communication. We often oversimplify communication between humans because we think it's just signal exchange. The reason it's difficult is because communication is lossy. Things get lost in translation. There's no guarantee that the signal I want to send, you will receive and interpret it in the way that triggers my desired response. This is more than technology. This is psychology. So when you build a dashboard, you either build it for yourself or you build it for others. And when you build it for yourself, it's easier because you have better information about the problems you're trying to solve. And when you build it for others, even with the best research and requirements, you still have to guess because you are not your client. Take a look at this triangle. Imagine it's a corporate hierarchy with layers of supervisors and managers growing vertically and disciplines or departments growing horizontally. Wherever you are affects your perspective. You have both the curse of knowledge and the curse of ignorance because you don't know what you don't know. And wherever you're trying to communicate to affects the shape of your communication. In this example, if I'm here at this black dot and trying to make a division-wide communication, then what we have in common is the division. But because the level varies so much and I'm separated by the details I don't know, then the further away the communication goes, the more difficult it will be for me to say something that resonates. Because the patterns I'm familiar with and use might be different from the ones others expect. Likewise, if I'm trying to make a level-wide communication, the distance I'm facing is across functions and disciplines where I don't know what I don't know. So now take this example of a particular operational problem. It doesn't just touch one level or one division. It cuts across multiple, where the problem is relevant to those individual people. What we have in common is our proximity to a problem and possibly our capability to do something about it. When we forget that we're communicating across a distance with completely different perspectives and capabilities, we often alienate the people we need to act. Most of the problems you'll face in your career are communication problems, not technical ones. It's for this reason that I found the following 4 types of dashboards effective, because they balance the level of detail to the expectation you have of the human that's looking at it, to act, to change their behavior and help solve the problem. So the first one is dashboards as a map. The second type is dashboards as a gap. The third type is dashboards as an app. And the last type is really a catch-all for all the things dashboards shouldn't be, which I call a trap. So you can see and hear their names rhyme. It's convenient. So let's look at maps first. A map is a symbolic representation of relationships. It shows how things connect to each other. It is generally an abstraction that hides some detail while emphasizing others. These dashboards organize information into a conceptual model. They can then explore how entities connect, how things flow from one state to another, or how transitions happen over time. Examples of this can be profit and loss statements, taxonomies, and funnels. They are intended to educate the viewer by showing the whole and examining what parts are worth focusing on within it, around it, or because of it. The power of a dashboard that serves as a map can be normalizing or establishing a way to look at the business or organization and socializing the factors contributing to performance changes. The second type is dashboards as a gap. When we talk about gaps in business, we're usually referring to alternative realities and what-if scenarios, with the most obvious being why a gap exists. Dashboards of this type layer some algorithm on the data to calculate the difference between an expected value, like a forecast, plan, or average, and the actual value. Examples of this could be anomaly detection, business reviews, comparisons between peers, or one that provides controls to test different values in a calculated whole, like margin or employee count. Understanding a business through its gaps connects what could be done with the reality of what's actually happening. It also allows a dashboard to bake in a strong opinion about what capabilities an organization has to alter their future instead of following the current trajectory. By emphasizing the gaps, we pay attention to the opportunities that have the most impact. It's like focusing on profit instead of top-line revenue. While revenue is an important signal, it's often the profit gap that decimates businesses. By understanding the gaps in your organization and the levers that affect the size of those gaps, you start having deeper discussions about actions that should be taken and reconciling misalignments between people's conceptions of the organization. The third type is dashboards as apps. If you think of many software applications, they encapsulate a transactional flow, a bi-directional exchange of inputs and outputs. Dashboards fit cleanly within this ecosystem. When you can connect an interaction with the data to a subsequent change in state of some entity or trigger the next action, you've created a closed loop system where viewers can take action without leaving the dashboard. When you connect data review directly to what someone can actually do about it, you eliminate the delays and inefficiencies that come from switching between different tools or taking things offline. The last is really a catch-all for the anti-patterns of dashboard design and management, when effort would better be spent elsewhere instead of forcing the medium against the preferences of its users. This could be making a dashboard designed for you instead be forced on other people. It could be giving people a dashboard when they wanted a spreadsheet, or simply a number, or nothing at all. It could be being too clever with your designs. I think we can all be accused of this. Or confusing dashboards with data stories or presentations. Sometimes, even when someone is requesting a dashboard, the solution is not a dashboard. So what you often see showcased as business dashboards look something like this. Many charts trying to fit on a page, demonstrating the capability of the tool, or just making it look like a dashboard you've seen before. But when I look at this dashboard, this is what I see. A bento box, which may be a fantastic way to organize and present food, but it's a poor way to organize information. Here's why. It isn't opinionated about where to start and where to end. If this was a meal, I could start with any dish I wanted first. It also emphasizes variety. When that could be an outcome, it shouldn't be the goal. Now, these may be helpful to people, especially people that build them for themselves. But I found this layout struggles to resonate with others. When I design a dashboard, I like to have a sequence in mind, not just a buffet of data. Sarah, are there any questions so far?
No, feel free to continue, and then if any show up, we can answer them in the chat. In the Q&A.
Great. So today I'm going to show you design patterns that I've found in my experience to work well for others. Here are the four I'm going to talk about. Tall and scrolly, bands plus decomp, Sankey plus table, and potential gap. These will all make sense once I've explained them. So starting with this tall and scrolly, these stack everything vertically, organized by metric family. And you allow people to scroll to their level of depth. To illustrate this better, on the left side of the screen is zoomed in on one metric, and on the right side is zoomed out composition with multiple metrics. So this shows a time series pattern across measures. See, when they're stacked up, they're aligned to show event patterns. It's a mobile-friendly format. I could look at this in my email or in an app. And that's how it got the name scrolling. And it's easy to add additional metrics. I can add metrics at the bottom or insert them between existing ones. So let's focus on the zoomed in version for a moment. I often design in monochromatic color palettes until I have a reason to use color, because color is a very powerful and emotional tool. There's a title, which is often the metric name, the chart itself, which in this case is a simple line chart, or a line chart with an area fill below to show its distance from the axis. Now, the most recent interval has a dot to emphasize it. Beside the chart is a big number, which shows its current value. Under that is a delta, which is week over week, comparing last week's value to this week. And below that is the range value. Why would we have an in range value here? And what does that mean? So in range is basically from a start date to an end date. It's flexible. It's also helpful for launch reporting because not enough time has passed to have a year-over-year comparisons. You could also change the date grain from something like week to day or month, depending on the cadence of the reporting. This is a powerful pattern because it often doesn't require instruction or training. Once someone has learned to read one chart, they know how to read every other one and every future dashboard like this. However, it does have some drawbacks. Since metric order implies priority, whatever is the top few metrics often gets seen more. It shows noise. The volatility of lines and bars doesn't interpret or prescribe action. And it doesn't label the value of every data point. Its focus is on the recent value, and everything is in scale to that. Now, interacting with this, you could have tooltips and other things that allow you to reveal all of the interstitial values. But if you send this as a PDF or an email image, it's not going to have that. And where I've seen this work is new product and feature introductions where audiences are different levels, from executives to operators and across all functions. Now, the next is bands and decomp. Bands, B-A-N-S, stand for big ass numbers. That's the technical term. It's in several books. I was actually in the room when the term was coined by Steve Wexler. Tableau actually used my work that's in the big book of dashboards to do eye tracking research on them. They are exactly what you think they are, big numbers that focus attention. The term decomp is short for decomposition, which means to break down. In dashboard terms, that usually means breaking down by a specific dimension, like regionality, product, or something else. The decomp in this example is a horizontal bar chart, which you can see in the zoomed out version to the right. The big numbers focus attention on important measures, and the breakdown show differences between segments. Notice how the bar charts are aligned with the bands above them. This reduces labeling and the need for color legends. Since you have a consistent layout, there are two interactive features that work really well. One is changing the dimension you're grouping by. So instead of a region, you could switch it to product. You could also apply filters. So maybe you want to see products that are selling really well in the Eastern region. The drawbacks to this one are pressure to include secondary metrics, which break the layout, and there's less flexibility with that. The other one is that it can hide important nuance. In this case, when we flatten the decomps into singular lines, they aren't showing trends. They're just showing the range value. You'd have to filter to the specific thing you'd want to have the bands then show the trend chart. Now, where I've seen this work, operational monitoring for teams that have ownership of metric outcomes. What do I mean? When you see something performing poorly, you can actually do something about it. This means people are interested in opening the dashboard and interacting because they are responsible. The next is Sankey and table. A Sankey is a type of flow diagram. Each node is a choice or a decision. Along the way, different choices are made. This provides a quantified map of those journeys. This pattern establishes a diagram of the whole system and uses reference tables below to show details. It's for diagnosing conversion and retention patterns across nodes and segments to know where to optimize. It identifies where volume concentrate and where it drops off. It also shows where segments behave differently. However, it has drawbacks too. It doesn't show time series unless paired with sparklines. It requires complex data transformations, and recursive loops complicate the calculations. Meaning if someone can go back through multiple paths or start in the middle, it makes the math weird. Now, where I've seen this work is growth teams figuring out behavior across complex funnels and overlapping segments. The last is potential gap. Like I said earlier when I talked about the types, this pattern is incorporating the idea of a potential gap into the bands and decomp example. It shows what you could be delivering, versus what you're actually delivering, and makes the gap between current performance and available capacity visible. It quantifies the cost of inefficiencies and makes trade-offs comparable. However, it too has drawbacks. Calculating potential requires making assumptions, and oversimplifying these can lead to uncomfortable misunderstandings. It shows opportunities you can't recover, which can be discouraging. Now, where I've seen this work is operational teams that have a clear action to take, but limited time. Before we go on, I want to summarize what each of these patterns does. They all establish big picture awareness, but direct small picture action. So think global and act local. By strengthening KPI ownership, meaning people care about the numbers because they can do something about them. And they act as a prioritization mechanism. So their action is aligned with the results they want. The next thing I want to talk about is designing for executives. That's anyone in the C-suite, like CEOs, CFOs, vice presidents, and this could incorporate all sorts of executive administrators and other organizations. Now, executive dashboards should provide an overview of the business that can be scanned in less than 30 seconds. Because they are either sent as a pre-read to a meeting, the first agenda item in a meeting, or to prevent a meeting. I'm going to read those again. The first agenda item in the meeting, or to prevent a meeting. Most people misunderstand what executive dashboards are for because they are not executives. Executive dashboards are different because executives have different responsibilities than most people have the experience to understand. A designer in this position is managing the competitive tensions of the most powerful people in their company, which is why a simple dashboard is the best option. So let's take a look at these four: metric grid, metric table, metric on row, and metric on column. Starting with a metric grid. You can see the band pattern again with a trend visualization below. Each metric gets its own card, organized by priority or metric family. Big numbers are easy to read, and the trend shows performance patterns. The flexible layout adapts to desktop or mobile viewports. It's easy to add or reorganize metrics, and metrics can use different chart types. However, it too has drawbacks. The time series patterns across metrics are harder to compare. There's no decomposition to see underlying details, and limited date grain comparisons. In this case, I'm showing week over week and year over year. But some business cases need year to date, quarter over quarter, or any other variation. Including all of this can start to clutter the dashboard. Now, where I've seen this work, new product and feature introductions before operational patterns have stabilized. And what this means is big problems haven't been isolated yet because there's not enough history. Now, the next is a metric table, which is a variation on the grid. But we split by dimension to show both comparisons and contribution to the total. Imagine comparing global to one specific country to the rest of the world. This shows total and breakdown in one view. It encourages side-by-side comparison. And proportional chart sizing visualizes relative performance. However, these are some of the drawbacks. Charts hide variation in dimensions with lower relative value. If I'm comparing a large country to a small country, that chart will be so small you can't see its patterns. You could also have too many dimension columns, which decreases readability. So this is ideal for comparing 2 to 4 things, but any wider it becomes difficult to read. The other issue is that too many metrics make the dashboard too tall. So your stakeholders get carpal tunnel by scrolling down the page. Where I've seen this work, new region or channel launches to isolate market trends or to monitor cannibalization. Now we're switching to a more familiar table layout. Each row is a metric, providing horizontal space for multiple time comparisons. The first column after the metric name is a sparkline. So you can see time series patterns across measures. Multiple date grams put performance in historical context. And the vertical order establishes business priority. In the last column, I've put a health indicator, which can be some algorithmic threshold to indicate concern. In this case, metric D is a concern, but metric C is not, even though it's declining week over week. This layout also has some drawbacks. It has limited space to decomp dimensions, meaning you're looking at a global view right now. How about performance by region? That takes more charts below. The sparklines are also too small to show subtle fluctuations, and the metrics have no common axis scaling. Like, how do you compare dollars to support calls? They're a directional comparison. Where I've seen this work is established businesses where trends are noisy and affected by seasonality. That's why there's so many date comparisons visible, to reduce any panic when a number drops or increases. And the last one is kind of a pivot of the previous. We put the metric on the columns and the dimension as the row header. It's better for businesses tracking performance across many dimensions because it summarizes performance across one line. The sparklines are aligned and comparing the same metrics, and it's expandable to include additional dimensions. However, it doesn't provide historical context for metrics without sparklines or date grain comparisons. And pressure to include too many metrics can break the layout, which I think is a theme. Where I've seen this work is businesses with regional independence, where operational locality impacts trends, like currency exchange rates. What each of these executive layouts I've shown you have in common is that they're familiar to executives and don't require training. In the future, when you hear intuitive, think familiar. It follows a convention. There are minimal elements which help prioritization decisions, and they're easy to capture and share in other contexts, like slides and email. Okay, I've reached the end of my prepared slides and am open to questions about this talk or anything data visualization related.
Thanks very much, Ryan. Lovely overview and a couple of very cool thoughts that I've written down to take forward. I think it's really interesting if people on the call remember the first dashboard they've designed. I certainly remember mine. It had a dark green background, light green lettering. Each chart had a gray background because I thought that was very cool, and all the colors in the world. And unfortunately, it wouldn't fit any of your lovely buckets. That would have made my life much more easier back then. But I'm really kind of the couple of things I've written down. There's in the NHS quite a lot of operational monitoring that's happening. And I think that kind of design on familiarity is quite an important part for our colleagues who work in the NHS to ensure that people actually use it. The second part, using monochrome until needed. I'm certainly guilty of loving Sankey charts and loving many colors on one. I don't think I've ever built one that had 0 colors in it. Definitely a challenge I'm taking forward. But I will stop blabbing about myself. Any questions that anyone wanted to, or any thoughts? If you remember your first dashboard that you've designed and you'd like to share it, it's an open and safe space. Just have an idea of mine. You'll be fine. So yeah, any questions in the chat, or just pop your hand up, if you'd like to ask it live.
Yeah, so there's at the moment there's just a comment from Kathy in the chat saying it's one of the best presentations she's seen on dashboard design. So that's really great. If you want to come off mute and ask your question, or you can pop it in the chat and we can put it forward. Please go ahead. My first dashboards were, yeah, very colourful. We didn't know any better though, did we? Darren.
Hi, really interesting presentation, and I really like the designs. I think what I'm thinking about from an NHS point of view is you'd build that and it'd be brilliant. Then they'd ask for 25 filters to be added onto it, because that's what always happens in the NHS. So what experience have you got of creating those sorts of dashboards where people are wanting to drill all the time and to keep filtering the data?
I completely agree. And, I think that the challenge is also in how we frame these things as professionals, but also professionals in a space where there's an artistic element to it, meaning that we create something and get feedback, and the feedback also kind of implies that maybe we miss something. And so we're adding filters back, and it feels like it's that we didn't understand the implications. But when we design something, we're really growing together, us as the designers and our stakeholders themselves. And so oftentimes the challenge with building dashboards is like dashboards come as this unit, like, hey, you're the team that's going to build the dashboard. And it comes out as like, yeah, this singular dashboard that does everything. It's this superhuman tool that exists in one link and one URL. But what I found is that sometimes it's multiple dashboards. Sometimes it's not just one. And when I showed that diagram where you had that triangle and you had this problem and you had executive stakeholders, operational stakeholders in different parts of the organization. There's a different appetite for some of those numbers. And so if you take one of those designs, like the bands plus decomp, and you say, oh, now I want 25 filters for it, that might actually be an opportunity to explore a specific dashboard just for the problem that person is trying to solve. And you have to balance that between the other people that are also going to be using it. And I think what's hard is our power users have this dominant force in our lives. They have this huge influence. It's like we're so hungry for feedback from the 100 people that have access to this dashboard, but yet we hear it from 2, and they're the loudest voices, and everything else is a murmur. And so those 2 are like, give me those filters because I'm going to be on this 4 hours every day, and this is really useful. And to us, it's like, we built this beautiful thing and has like this perfect form, and now it's following best practices, and now you're adding these filters which add it down the page, and I'm adding this ugly label, and it's just for you. And we're like, it's this work of art that is now diminished by these new needs from the operators in the field. And I think that the balance there is both professional and personal. Meaning they can have those needs and they can change your dashboard and you can feel differently about that dashboard. But it also could mean a deeper opportunity to explore something specifically for them, which increases the surface area of an implementation. So anytime stuff like that comes up, it's an opportunity to educate, but also build that deeper relationship, because hidden in that request is that desire for somebody to be a champion and to find what they can be a champion about. And because we are designers, because we are in this place where we balance, the data versus the organization's needs for things, we can help magnify, we can amplify that champion in the organization by working closer with it. So Darren, that wasn't a clean answer of like, say this and they won't have any more filters, or hide them here, because you can also do hidden panels for filters and everything and add that. It adds complexity and everything like that. But I would say build that relationship, understand how they're using it. You can also build it for them and watch them use it. Build a cloned version of it for like 2 weeks that they can see it and use all those filters and say, hey, are you using this? Is this giving you what you need? Or do we need to talk about like a specialized dashboard for the problems you solve? Did that help, Darren? I know I went off on a tangent there.
I think it is, because I think what you're saying is about really understanding the need of the customer, and there may be several customers with different needs, and it might be that building one dashboard to meet all of their needs isn't the right approach.
Exactly, and I think that's the challenge that we have as communicators is we all hold different mental models of the world. And when you work in a fairly large organization with lots of different people doing different things and having different responsibilities, it's really hard to get into the mindset, to see the vision, to see the day, to understand what motivates them clicking, what gives them anxiety, what pain they're sensing by not having access to these numbers. And so the balance becomes giving things to people because they think they want something, and helping enable people to resolve some pain or to expand some opportunity that they previously didn't have. And I think by having more of those discussions, by feeling more comfortable in the uncomfortable conversations like that, will allow us to build better products for our constituents, because really our needs aren't as important as theirs because they're the ones acting on it.
Yeah, it's really helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Darren. I think one of the classic examples in some of my work along those lines is you build a dashboard and you build it on A level, and let's say that's either the local authority or the integrated care system level. And it fails the first test when you send it because people go, great, but can I have a filter for primary care networks? So kind of drilling deeper down into smaller localities. And what I've done previously is I would create a replica of it on that level, sent it to them, and just waited for feedback. And often the feedback is, this is very interesting, but I don't need to use it. I need the original version because that's what I'll be using to report and to kind of feedback to my stakeholders. So I think there is this degree of like genuine curiosity that we have as people that makes us want to drill down. And maybe there is some space for us to kind of create that opportunity for our stakeholders, for them to still kind of utilize that curiosity and then come back to what they actually need.
One of the things that I do in discovery is kind of a reporting strategy, meaning that somebody has a request for a dashboard, but really that's just a singular interface that people can go to. If you kind of sketch the chain of possibilities for different personas, sometimes two personas can use the same dashboard and they're not like tripping over each other. But if you add that third persona to it, you change the whole layout. You change the momentum of the flow. And so what I'll often do is design a diagram of the different dashboards and the personas that it relates to. And say, this is phase one. The phase one is the dashboard we're working on right now. Let's get some feedback on phase one. Then we can talk about these other dashboards. And it's easier to say, hey, we totally want to have that dashboard too, as well, but it's part of a later phase.
Yeah.
And being able to point to the original. Oh, go ahead, Charlotte.
I was saying, yeah, making those incremental changes. Saying, oh yeah, it'll come in the next phase. Putting things, into different phasing helps, doesn't it, with your stakeholders to know that it's on the board.
And that's also a really good point, is have a visible request list or feedback, commentary, bugs, issues, making that visible so there can be more interaction around that and people can feel a shared sense of accessibility and kind of championship of those dashboards.
Definitely. Thank you. Any other questions or comments or anything you'd like to share? Struggles that we can kind of help brainstorm together?
I could do the prize wheel while people are thinking if you want.
Excellent. Let's do that.
So every tug, for those that don't come around us very often, we do a prize wheel. 3 lucky winners win some Tableau swag. It is only available for UK participants. I'm afraid, I know that I've got some Americans in the room with us, but we can't afford the postage overseas, unfortunately. So I don't know for sure who lives in the UK, so all your names are in there. So just let me know if you are not eligible, and we can try and spin again. And there is only 13 of you, so you have a good chance of winning this one. Can you see my wheel? Okie dokie, off we go. Let's write these names down. I always forget to do that. Oh, Ali. Congratulations. Lisa, is George going to get lucky? George Wilson. And one more. Ruth. So I am going to pop my email address in the chat. If you could just email me over a postal address for you guys, and I will get some Tableau swag prizes off to you.
Super. Thanks so much, Charlotte. Definitely great odds for people to join and win some swag. Any other questions before we close this evening?
Sorry, Lisa, yeah. Just tipped over to George there, didn't it? You'll have to come back to the next one and try your luck again.
Cool. If there are no other questions, thank you so much, Ryan, for joining us and for the presentation. Brilliant stuff. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and to everyone who's going to join in on the recording. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope to see as many of you in our April tug. Again, link is in the chat to sign up. I don't think there's anything else left for me to say, but just thank you to Ryan. Thank you to everyone for joining us, and hope you enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are.
Have a good evening, everyone.